Once, in a small, unassuming village nestled in the rolling countryside of Eastern Europe, there lived a girl named Elena. She had eyes the color of the deepest night and hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall of moonlit silver. Her skin was as pale as the first snowfall and as smooth as the finest porcelain. The villagers often whispered about her beauty, how it could put the most radiant roses to shame. They did not know, however, that Elena carried a heavy burden, a burden that grew heavier with every passing year, as the whispers grew louder and the shadows grew longer. Elena's mother, the local seamstress, had always been a plain woman. She took pride in her work, and her kindness was renowned. Yet she could not help but feel a twinge of jealousy at her daughter's ethereal looks. As Elena blossomed into a young woman, the whispers grew to encompass not only her beauty, but also her mother's inexplicable aging. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of dark magic and ancient curses, not knowing the truth that lay behind the castle walls. Summary 1. In an Eastern European village, a girl named Elena grows increasingly beautiful, which brings suspicion and whispers of dark magic. Her mother, the seamstress, becomes envious as she inexplicably ages. The castle stood tall and foreboding on the hill that overlooked the village. It was the home of the once beautiful Queen Isolde. Time had not been kind to the queen. Her skin, once the envy of every maiden, had become a canvas of wrinkles, a map of every year she had denied to others. Her eyes, which had once sparkled like the stars, had dimmed to the cold glint of shattered glass. Yet she remained a figure of power, her reign unchallenged, and her secrets tightly guarded. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the village in a soft, golden glow, Elena found an invitation at her doorstep. It was an elegant piece of parchment, adorned with the royal seal of Queen Isolde. The words, written in a flowing script that seemed almost alive, invited her to a masquerade ball at the castle. Her heart fluttered with excitement and fear. She had never been to such an event before. She knew the queen was known to host grand parties, but she had never been invited. Her mother's eyes narrowed at the sight of the invitation. "You must not go, Elena," she warned, her voice tight with concern. But Elena, eager to escape the confines of her simple life, was determined to attend. She had heard tales of the enchanting nights at the palace, the music and laughter that seemed to dance on the very air. Despite her mother's protests, she began preparing for the ball, her mind racing with visions of handsome princes and fairy tale romance. Little did Elena know that this single evening would set in motion a series of events that would unravel the very fabric of her existence. For the queen had not invited her for a night of frivolity and dance, but rather for a far more sinister purpose. A purpose that would entwine their destinies together in a dance of darkness and redemption, leading to a confrontation that would echo through the annals of time. The night of the masquerade arrived, and Elena, dressed in a gown of midnight blue, made her way up the winding path to the castle. The moon cast eerie shadows across the cobblestones, and the wind whispered secrets that made her heart race. As she approached the castle gates, she couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Yet she pushed it aside, eager to experience the opulence and glamour that awaited her within the castle walls. Inside the grand ballroom, the air was thick with the scent of candle wax and perfume. The chandeliers glittered with 1,000 facets, casting a kaleidoscope of light across the sea of masquerading guests. Elena felt a strange sensation, as if she were being watched. Her eyes searched the crowd, trying to discern the source of her unease. There, standing at the far end of the room, she saw the queen. Queen Isolde was resplendent in a gown of crimson, her eyes piercing through the shadows of her mask. The sight of the queen sent a shiver down Elena's spine. The night progressed, and Elena found herself drawn to the queen. They danced together, their steps perfectly in sync. With every touch, Elena felt the weight of the queen's gaze, the intensity of her stare. It was as if the queen was peeling away the layers of her soul, searching for something. And then it struck her the queen had invited her here to take her youth, to drink from the wellspring of beauty that flowed within her. The horror of the realization grew as the evening drew to a close. As the final notes of the masquerade's waltz faded away, the queen led Elena to a private chamber. The walls were lined with ancient tones and strange artifacts that hummed with dark energy. The air grew cold, and the room seemed to pulse with malice. It was here that the true nature of the queen's beauty was revealed, a beauty born not of nature, but of a heinous and unspeakable act. The young boy, unbeknownst to Elena, had been watching from the shadows. His heart filled with anger and a fierce determination to protect the innocent. His eyes searched the room for any sign of the queen's nefarious intent, his mind racing with plans to save Elena from a fate worse than death. His name was Alexei, a village outcast with a vendetta against the queen. His mother had been one of her victims, and now he sought to end the cycle of horror that had plagued the village for generations. As the queen's true intentions came to light, Elena's eyes grew wide with terror. But before the queen could act, Alexei sprang into the room, a dagger glinting in the candlelight. His eyes met Elena's, and in that instant, she knew she had an ally. The battle had begun, and the fate of the village, and perhaps the kingdom itself, rested in the hands of this brave young boy and the girl whose beauty had once brought joy, but now promised only darkness. The queen, taken aback by the sudden interruption, hissed with fury. Her withered hand shot out, but Alexei was quicker. He darted across the room, nimble as a shadow, and slashed at the queen's hand. The blade bit deep, drawing forth a cry of pain that echoed through the chamber like a shattered bell. The queen stumbled back, her eyes flashing with rage. Elena, now aware of the monster before her, felt a surge of strength she had never known. She tore free from the queen's grip and rushed to Alexei's side. Together, they faced the wrath of the undying tyrant. The room was a whirlwind of motion, as the queen's guards flooded in, drawn by the commotion. Yet Alexei and Elena stood firm, fighting back to back, each driven by their own burning conviction. The struggle was fierce, with swords clashing and spells flying. The air grew thick with the scent of blood and fear. But amidst the chaos, a spark of hope flickered to life. The villagers had heard the commotion and rallied to the cause, storming the castle to save their kin. The tide of the battle began to turn, the power of the queen waning as the people she had oppressed for so long stood against her. In the heart of the fray, Alexei and Elena found themselves face to face with the queen once more. She had shed her regal garb, revealing the creature she truly was, a withered hag with skin as pale as bone, her eyes burning with a desperate hunger for youth. Her fangs bared, she lunged at them, her claws reaching for the prize she had so long coveted. But Alexei was prepared. He had studied the ancient texts, the ones that spoke of the creature's weakness. As the queen closed in, he whispered the forbidden words, the incantation that would strip away her power. The dagger in his hand grew hot, the symbol of the sun etched upon its blade pulsing with light. With a mighty swing, he plunged the weapon into the queen's heart, and the castle walls trembled as the dark magic that had sustained her for centuries was undone. The queen let out a final, agonized scream, her body crumpling to the ground. The guards, their loyalty broken by the revelation of her true nature, fell back in disarray. The villagers surged forward, their torches casting the chamber in a fiery glow. And as the light touched the queen's lifeless form, she was gone, reduced to nothing but dust and shadow. The castle, once a bastion of fear, now stood as a monument to hope and freedom. The curse was lifted, and the village could finally breathe easy. Yet the story of the princess and the boy who had brought her down would live on, a grim reminder of the price of vanity and the power of courage. For in the end, it was not the beauty of Elena's youth that had triumphed, but the beauty of her spirit, and the love and valor of the young hero who had stood by her side. Elena, forever changed by the horrors she had faced, found solace in Alexei's company. Together they worked tirelessly to rebuild the lives of those who had suffered at the hands of the queen. The villagers, their hearts now unclouded by fear, saw in Elena not a source of envy, but a symbol of purity and strength. Her mother, whose own burden had been lifted with the queen's demise, watched her daughter blossom into a woman of compassion and wisdom. Years passed, and the scars of the past began to heal. Yet whispers of the vampiric queen's reign lingered, a cautionary tale to keep the hearts of the villagers ever vigilant. Elena, now a leader in her own right, often found herself at the center of these whispers. Her beauty had not faded, but rather had deepened with maturity, and she knew that she had been granted a second chance at life. With Alexei by her side, she used her influence to ensure that the darkness that had once shrouded the land was never allowed to return. The two grew close, their bond forged by the fires of adversity. Yet there remained a shadow between them, a secret that Elena could never fully share. For each time she looked in the mirror, she was haunted by the face that had once been the queen's, a constant reminder of the monster she had so narrowly escaped becoming. Alexei, ever perceptive, sensed her turmoil, but could never find the words to ease her pain. It was in the quiet moments, as they sat together watching the sun rise over the village they had saved, that Elena revealed her fears to Alexei. She spoke of the nights when the whispers of the queen still echoed in her mind, taunting her with the knowledge that she too bore the taint of darkness. Alexei took her hand, his eyes filled with the warmth of the dawn, and promised to stand by her, to remind her that she was not the creature of the night she feared. Their love grew stronger, a beacon in the village that had known so much despair. Yet the world was vast and filled with unknown dangers. It was a love that would be tested time and again as they faced the trials that awaited them. For the legacy of the queen was not so easily eradicated, and there were those who sought to harness the power that had once resided within her. Together, Alexei and Elena would face these challenges, their hearts bound by a promise to protect their people from the shadows that still lurked beyond the village borders. The tale of the vampire queen and the brave young boy grew into legend, a story whispered to wide-eyed children as a warning and a comfort. Yet it was also a story of redemption and love, of how a girl named Elena had found the strength to stand against the darkness that had consumed her, and of how a boy named Alexei had given her the courage to embrace the light. And so the legend of their victory grew, a testament to the enduring power of hope in the face of the most dire of adversities. But the world is a fickle place, and legends, much like the memories of those who live them, have a way of becoming distorted with time. The true nature of the queen's curse was forgotten, her reign of terror relegated to the realm of fairy tales and campfire horrors. The villagers grew complacent, the castle a mere backdrop to their daily lives, a silent sentinel to a past they had buried. Yet the castle's walls held secrets that could not be so easily dismissed. Elena and Alexei, now grown into capable leaders, had built a life together, their bond unshaken by the passing of years. Yet the whispers of the queen's power never truly left them. They could feel the echoes of her malice in the shadows of the night, a specter that clung to the periphery of their existence. And it was during one such night, as they walked the battlements of the very fortress that had once been her prison, that they encountered a young girl, her eyes filled with terror and her throat marred by the unmistakable marks of fangs. The girl, barely more than a child, spoke in a trembling voice of a creature that preyed on the village youth, taking their beauty for itself. Her words sent a chill down Elena's spine, for she knew all too well the price of eternal beauty. It was a price she had never wanted to pay, and one she had vowed to ensure no one else would. Alexei's grip on her hand tightened, and she knew that the time had come to face the echoes of their past, to ensure that the queen's legacy of fear and suffering would be banished forever. Together, they embarked on a quest to uncover the source of the new terror that stalked the night. They traversed the countryside, gathering information and seeking allies. Their journey led them to distant lands and into the heart of the very darkness that had once claimed the queen. It was here, in a hidden lair beneath the ruins of an ancient abbey, that they found the truth. The queen's bloodline had not been extinguished, and a new threat had arisen, one that bore the same insatiable hunger for beauty and youth. The creature before them was not the queen, but her descendant, a twisted mirror image of the woman Elena had once been. It was a battle that tested their resolve to the breaking point, their love a beacon that guided them through the dark. With the ancient dagger still in his hand, Alexei faced the creature, while Elena drew upon the power she had once feared, the power that had been her curse. The confrontation was fierce, the air crackling with the energy of centuries-old rage and a love that had survived it all. And when the dust settled, it was not just the creature that lay defeated, but the very essence of the queen's curse. For Elena had discovered that the true source of beauty lay not in the reflection of a mirror, but in the hearts of those who loved and were loved in return. Their triumph was not just the end of a monster's reign, but the beginning of a new era for the village. The shadow of the vampiric curse had been lifted, and in its place grew a garden of peace and prosperity. Yet the scars of the past remain, etched into the very stones of the castle. It was a reminder of the price of power and the cost of vanity. And so they ruled not as monarchs, but as guardians, their love a bastion of light in a world that had once been consumed by darkness. The story of Elena and Alexei became one of hope and sacrifice, a tale that taught the village the true value of beauty and the strength that lies within the human spirit. As they grew old together, their hearts remained young, bound by the love that had seen them through their darkest hours. And as they watched the next generation of children grow and play in the castle's once forbidden halls, they knew that the legacy they had left behind was one of hope and redemption, a beacon that would shine for generations to come. But the world is ever-changing, and the whispers of the past have a way of resurfacing. Decades later, as Elena's silver hair turned to white, and Alexei's eyes grew weary with age, a new shadow began to creep over the village. A rumor of a creature that prowled the night, preying on the young and beautiful, began to spread. The villagers grew fearful, their whispers echoing the terror of long-forgotten days. The couple knew that the time had come to pass the torch to their grandchild, a young man named Konstantin. He had grown up hearing tales of his grandparents' bravery and the queen's downfall, but had never known the fear that had once gripped the village so tightly. With a heavy heart, Elena revealed to him the truth of her past, the curse that had been laid upon her, and the power she had wielded and overcome. Konstantin, filled with the same fiery resolve that had driven Alexei to action, set out to confront the creature that had emerged from the shadows of the queen's legacy. His journey was fraught with danger, but he was not alone. The ghosts of the past, the very souls of the women whose lives the queen had stolen, lent him their strength and wisdom. Through trials and tribulations, he discovered the depth of his own courage and the power of love that had sustained his grandparents' bond. In the end, it was Konstantin who faced the creature in its lair, a twisted reflection of his grandmother's former torment. With the ancient dagger that had once been used to slay the queen, he struck the creature down, releasing the spirits of the lost women and freeing the village from the curse once and for all. As the creature crumbled to dust, the castle walls trembled, the very foundation of the building seemingly shaken by the release of the dark energy that had held it captive for so long. The tale of Konstantin's bravery grew alongside the legend of his grandparents, each story a reminder that the battle against darkness is never truly won, but must be fought anew with every sunrise. Yet the castle remained, a silent symbol of hope and a symbol of the enduring love between Elena and Alexei. Their legacy continued to inspire those who walked its hallowed halls, a reminder that even in the face of eternal night, the light of love and courage can never truly be extinguished. But as the years turned to decades, and decades to centuries, the world outside the village began to change. The castle grew old, its stones cracked and worn, but the love that had been born and reborn within its walls remained as potent as ever. The story of the vampire queen and her ultimate downfall was whispered in the corridors of power, a cautionary tale of the price of vanity. Yet the memory of the brave young boy who had slain her grew distant, a hero lost to the annals of time. It was during a time of great upheaval, when wars ravaged the land and the old ways were cast aside in favor of the new, that the castle's secrets were once again unearthed. A young girl named Anastasia, with eyes as blue as the midday sky and hair as golden as the wheat fields that surrounded the village, grew into a woman of unrivaled beauty. The whispers grew louder, the jealousy more pointed. It was said that she bore the same unearthly allure that had once drawn the queen's eye, a beauty that could not be allowed to flourish. The night that would change everything came swiftly and without warning. A cloaked figure slipped into the village, a shadow in the moonlight. Anastasia, feeling a strange kinship with the girl whose fate had been forever linked with hers, had been waiting for this moment. She had studied the ancient tomes, learned the whispers of the past, and knew that the time had come for her to face the legacy that had been laid upon her. The figure revealed itself to be a young man named Adrian, a descendant of the very lineage that had spawned the vampiric queen. His eyes burned with the same hunger that had driven his ancestor to madness. He had come to claim what he believed was his birthright, the beauty and youth of the village's most precious treasure. But Anastasia was not the helpless maiden that the queen had been. She had been taught by Elena and Alexei's descendants, trained in the ways of the light and the power of the heart. The battle between them was fierce, a clash of wills as much as it was a struggle of flesh and steel. Anastasia wielded the dagger that had once brought an end to the queen, the same dagger that had been passed down through the generations. The castle walls seemed to echo with the cries of the souls it had once contained, lending her strength as she faced the monster that sought to claim her. In the end, it was not just Anastasia's strength that prevailed, but the love of her people, the very love that had been the foundation of Elena and Alexei's triumph. Adrian fell to the ground, defeated, and the castle trembled once more, the final vestige of the queen's curse banished from the land. The village was free, the cycle of fear and bloodshed ended by the courage of a girl who had faced the shadow of her ancestry and emerged unscathed. The story of Anastasia and Adrian's confrontation became yet another chapter in the castle's storied history, a tale to be whispered alongside those of Elena and the queen. Yet it was not the end of the story, for the world remained a place of darkness and danger, where old evils could be reborn in new guises. The castle stood as a beacon of hope, a bastion of light in the eternal struggle between the forces of good and evil. And so the cycle of vigilance continued, the legacy of Alexei and Elena living on through each new generation. The castle, though it grew old and its stones crumbled, remained a symbol of the love and sacrifice that had once brought a village from the brink of despair. The tale of the princess who had been both monster and savior was told and retold, each iteration adding a new layer to the tapestry of the village's history. Yet amidst the whispers of the past, there was always the promise of a new dawn. For in every heart that heard the story, there grew a spark of courage, a reminder that in the face of the most insurmountable of evils, love and light can still find a way to prevail. And it was this promise that kept the village strong, as they looked to the future with hope, knowing that no matter what darkness the world might hold, there would always be those willing to stand against it. The boy's name was Theo, and he had grown up in the shadow of the castle's history. His mother had been a servant to Elena and Alexei, and she had often regaled him with tales of their bravery and sacrifice. Theo had always felt a strange connection to the story, a sense that it was more than just a fable, that it was a part of his very essence. As he grew, he honed his skills as a warrior, driven by an unspoken duty to protect the village from whatever shadows might still lurk beyond the horizon. One moonlit evening, as the village slept, Theo received a vision. A young girl, her beauty rivaling the stars, was being drawn to the castle by an unseen force. He knew in that moment that it was the work of the queen's malevolent spirit, seeking to claim another life to sustain its unnatural existence. Without hesitation, he donned the armor that had been passed down to him, the very armor that had been worn by Alexei, and set forth to confront the specter of the past. The castle was a maze of memories and pain, the very stones seeming to whisper the agonies of those who had been lost to the Queen's curse. Yet Theo pressed on, driven by the love that had been the cornerstone of Elena and Alexei's legacy. He navigated the twisting corridors, his heart pounding with each step, until he reached the chamber where the girl lay, unconscious and vulnerable. There, he found the Queen's spirit, a twisted mockery of the woman she had once been, reaching for the girl's throat. With the dagger in hand, Theo stepped forward, the light from his mother's amulet casting the room in an eerie glow. The Queen's spirit hissed, her eyes burning with a malice that seemed to set the very air alight. Yet Theo's resolve was unwavering. He had been born of the same lineage that had once brought darkness to the village, but he had been raised in the warm embrace of love and sacrifice. The battle between them was not one of fangs and steel, but of wills. The Queen's spirit sought to bend Theo to her will, to make him see the allure of eternal beauty and power. But Theo's heart remained pure, a bastion of hope and courage that the Queen could not breach. He recited the ancient incantations he had learned, the words of light that had once brought Elena back from the brink. The spirit writhed and contorted, its power waxing and waning with every syllable that fell from Theo's lips. The room grew hot, then cold, the air thick with the scent of ozone. The girl on the table stirred, a soft moan escaping her lips as the darkness that had claimed her began to recede. With a final desperate cry, the Queen's essence was expelled from the mortal realm, leaving only a cold and empty shell behind. The castle trembled, its very foundation seeming to sigh with relief. Theo, exhausted but triumphant, turned to the girl. She was a mere child, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and confusion. He knew that she would carry the scars of this night with her, a silent testament to the enduring nature of evil. Yet it was in her gaze that he saw the potential for a new beginning, a future unmarred by the shadow of the Queen's curse. Together they left the castle, the girl's hand in his. The village greeted them with open arms, the people weeping with joy at the sight of their savior. Theo knew that he had not merely slain a monster, but had also set free the souls of countless women whose lives had been stolen by the Queen's vanity. The legacy of Elena and Alexei lived on, a testament to the power of love and sacrifice. The girl, whose name was revealed to be Lila, grew up under the watchful eye of the village. Her beauty, once a target of the Queen's envy, became a symbol of hope and rebirth. Theo, now a man, never forgot the night he had faced his ancestor's ghost. He continued to train, to learn, and to protect. His love for Lila grew, but it was a love tempered by the knowledge of the burden she carried. As the years passed, whispers of the castle's dark past grew faint, replaced by the laughter of children playing in the sun. Yet Theo remained vigilant, his heart ever mindful of the shadow that had once loomed so large. For he knew that the battle against vanity and darkness was never truly won, but merely pushed back, waiting for the next heart to claim. But it was not fear that filled Theo's heart, but a quiet determination. The castle had become a museum of sorts, a place where the village children would learn of the price of beauty and the strength of love. And as he watched Lila, now a woman with children of her own, he knew that the legacy of Elena and Alexei had not been forgotten. It lived on in every heart that beat with courage and every soul that dared to stand against the night. The story of the Vampire Queen's end became a legend, a tale of redemption and hope that grew with each retelling. The castle, once a prison of fear, had been transformed into a bastion of light. Theo and Leila, bound by a love born from the ashes of darkness, became the new guardians of the village's future, ensuring that the lessons of the past were never forgotten. The world outside continued to change, but the castle remained steadfast, a monument to the eternal struggle between good and evil. Yet, within its walls, the seeds of a new era had been sown. An era where beauty was not a weapon, but a gift to be cherished. and it was in the hearts of the villagers, in the love they shared, that the true power of Elena and Alexei's sacrifice could be found. The village of Lumen Hollow had always been a place where the ordinary brushed elbows with the extraordinary. Nestled between mist-cloaked hills and a forest that whispered secrets to those who lingered past twilight, its people thrived on routines as steady as the moon's gentle dance across the sky. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the moon would rise, a silver sentinel casting its glow over cobblestone streets, thatched roofs, and the rippling surface of Lake Nithra. Children chased fireflies, elders sipped lavender tea on porches, and the world hummed with the quiet certainty that day would yield to night, and night, in time, to day. But on the eve of the autumn equinox, the moon did not rise. It was young Mara who noticed first. A girl of 9 with a habit of collecting lost things, wilted flowers, chipped teacups, forgotten stories. She often slipped into the meadow beyond the village to stargaze. That night, she waited by the old oak, its branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. The sunset bled into twilight, then deepened into indigo, but the horizon remained empty. No moon swelled to greet the stars. The darkness felt heavier, thicker, as if the air itself had forgotten how to breathe. She ran home, her boots crunching dried leaves, and burst into her grandmother's cottage. "Grana, the moon's gone." Grana Hester, keeper of the village lore, peered through her spectacles. Her hands, knotted like willow roots, paused over the embroidery in her lap. "Nonsense, child, the moon's never missed a night." But when she opened the window, her face paled. The sky was a void. No craters, no pearly light, only stars flickering nervously, like candles in a storm. By dawn, the village buzzed with unease. Fishermen returned with empty nets, muttering about tides that refused to ebb. Farmers fretted over crops, withering under the sun's unchecked glare. Sleep became a stranger. Without the moon's lullaby, newborns wailed, and even the owls seemed restless. The town council convened at the square, arguing over remedies, bonfires to mimic moonlight, prayers chanted in the old tongue, a futile expedition to find the moon. Only Grana Hester stayed silent, her gaze fixed on the heavens. High above, the stars convened their own council. They gathered in constellations rarely seen, Lyra, Cygnus, and Orion stepping from their celestial thrones to hover near Earth's atmosphere. Their voices chimed like glass bells. "The moon has wandered," declared Sirius, brightest of them all. "She's lost in her own dreams." The stars knew the moon's heart was heavy. She'd wept for centuries, watching wars and sorrows unfold below. Now, she'd folded herself into the shadows, leaving the world unbalanced. "We must help her remember," whispered Vega, her light dimmed by worry. Meanwhile, Mira devised a plan. If the moon wouldn't come to them, she'd go to the moon. She packed a satchel with Grana's stardust, a relic from her youth, a jar of fireflies, and a loaf of rye bread. At the forest's edge, she met Tomas, the blacksmith's son, clutching a lantern and a map scribbled with his father's tales of the place where the sky touches the earth. Together they ventured into the woods, where trees leaned close, their leaves hissing warnings. Shadows twisted into shapes, a wolf with starry eyes, a woman made of smoke, but the fireflies glowed bravely, pushing back the dark. Back in the village, Grana Hester lit a candle of crushed comet tails and sang a lullaby older than the hills. The melody wove through the streets, coaxing tears from the weary. One by one, villagers added their voices, a baker's hum, a weaver's chant, a child's whisper, until the song rose like a beacon. High above, the stars heard it. They pulsed in unison, streaking the sky with auroras, their light pooling into a river that cascaded toward Earth. Mira and Tomas followed the starry river to a glade where the moon sat curled into herself, her glow reduced to a faint shimmer. She was smaller than Mira had imagined, her face etched with cracks like ancient porcelain. "Why have you left us?" Mira asked, offering the fireflies. The moon sighed, her voice a tremor. The world is too heavy, I cannot bear it alone. Tomas placed the lantern at her feet. You're not alone, he said. Behind them, the villagers saw him swell, and the star's light swirled around the moon, stitching her fractures with threads of stardust. Slowly, the moon rose. Her light spilled over the forest, the village, the sea, gentle at first, then radiant. The stars guided her back to her throne, their brilliance intertwined with hers. In Lumen Hollow, children laughed in their sleep, tides reclaimed their rhythms, and Grana Hester closed her window with a smile. Dawn came, but the moon lingered a moment longer, winking at Mira before fading into the day. The villagers never spoke of that night again, but in quiet moments, they'd glance upward, comforted by the scarred, steadfast face in the sky, and the stars beside her, shining a little brighter as if to say, the moon's light, though restored, carried a newfound fragility. In the days that followed, Mira noticed subtle changes, a silvery scar across its surface where the stars had mended it, tides that lapped higher on the shore as if apologizing for their absence. But the village, ever pragmatic, buried its unease beneath routines. Only Grana Hester seemed to understand the gravity of what had occurred. She began teaching Mira the old psalms, the ones that could call down the wind or whisper to seeds. The stardust in her cedar chest, she confessed, wasn't just a relic, it was a promise made long ago to a star who'd loved her voice. Tomas, meanwhile, found himself haunted by the forest. The lantern he'd carried now glowed with a faint, moonlit sheen, and in its light, he glimpsed shadows that didn't match the trees. His father, the blacksmith, dismissed it as lack of sleep, but Tomas knew better. One dusk, as he mended a plowshare, the lantern's glow pulsed like a heartbeat. He followed it past the meadow, to a creek where the water ran backward, and there, kneeling in the shallows, was the smoke woman they'd glimpsed in the woods. Her form flickered, half-transparent, her eyes two voids. You woke the throat of the sky, she hissed. The balance is broken. In the heavens, the stars quarreled. Sirius accused Vega of overstepping. Mending the moon had drained their collective light, leaving the eastern constellations vulnerable. Orion, ever the warrior, proposed forging a new shield from the breath of comets, but Lyra, the bard star, warned against haste. The moon's sorrow was a symptom, she sang. The earth's pain is bleeding into the sky. Their debate was interrupted by a tremor, a ripple through the fabric of the night. Far below, the smoke woman's whisper had reached the ears of Nithra, the lake spirit, who stirred from her silt throne for the first time in millennia. Mira, tasked by Grana with gathering moon-touch time, stumbled upon Tomas at the creek. The smoke woman vanished, but not before Mira glimpsed a symbol etched into the water, a spiral, like the one on Grana's embroidery. That night she confronted her grandmother. Who is she? Grana's hands trembled as she unfolded a cloth embroidered with spirals. A memory, she said. A spirit who once loved the moon. When the moon chose duty over her, she unraveled. The smoke woman, Grana explained, was once Selene, a celestial weaver who'd spun the auroras. Her bitterness now threatened both realms. The stars, sensing Selene's resurgence, sent a fragment of their council, Cygnus in the guise of a swan, to warn Lumen Hollow. But Cygnus, mid-descent, was ensnared by Selene's phantom threads. His cry echoed through Mira's dreams, "Find the loom." She woke knowing the loom was real, hidden where earth and sky bleed together. Tomas, recalling his father's tales of a mountain that mirrored the stars, knew to place the peak of Mount Calis, where the village founders had sworn oaths under a starless sky. Their second journey was perilous. The forest, resentful of their intrusion, birthed delusions, phantom wolves, false paths, whispers that mimicked loved ones' voices. The fireflies dinned, their light swallowed by Selene's growing influence. Yet Mira's satchel, filled with Grana's herbs and stardust, revealed hidden protections. The rye bread repelled shadow creatures, the time opened sealed rocks. At dawn, they reached Mount Kaliz's base, where the creek originated. The water, now black and viscous, bore Cygnus's feather, a message. Hurry. Selene awaited them at the summit. The loom, a colossal frame of starlight and shadow, stood half-woven with a tapestry depicting the moon's descent. You think you saved her? Selene sneered. She is a cage, I will unravel her, and the stars with her. Mira, trembling, sprinkled stardust onto the loom. Threads ignited, revealing the tapestry's true image, the moon, yes, but also Selene, weaving alongside her. You were her sister, Mira realized. Selene wailed, the sound shaking the mountain. She left me. But Grana's voice, carried by the wind, rose from the village below, a song of two weavers, their love and rivalry. The stars, seizing the moment, channeled their light through Tomas's lantern. The loom shuddered, Selene's form began to mend, her smoky edges solidifying into starlight. We need you, Mira pleaded. Selene, trembling, touched the tapestry. A single thread, golden fragile, leapt from the loom to the sky. The moon, sensing it, pulsed in recognition. As the loom dissolved, Selene faded, not in anger but in sorrowful acceptance. Tell her I remember. The mountain trembled, and where the loom had stood, a new constellation blossomed, Selene's figure, needle in hand, forever weaving beside her sister. Back in Lumen Hollow, the villagers marveled at the new stars. Grana, weary but smiling, tucked Mira into bed. The sky's bigger now, she murmured. And kinder. Far above, the moon cradled Selene's constellation, their light entwined, while the stars hummed a lullaby only the broken could hear.